Good Sunday morning, everybody. I want to say thank you for supporting my Sunday message. I want to say God bless you all. And what I want to talk to you about today is Daniel chapter 6. You see, back in the day, Israel had been conquered by the Persian Empire, which is now modern day Iran. They started in Iran and they spread all the way through pretty much all the Middle East, and they were ruled by King Darius of Persia. Darius the Great, as he called. And I've noticed a lot of times these kings back in the day, they were so-and-so the great, so-and-so the terrible. I guess that's how they could separate each other. But, of course, I don't know if they give themselves these names or if somebody else did. Now, Darius, that name may not be familiar to a lot of people, but almost everybody's familiar with his son. His son was Xerxes. And Xerxes was, the villain in the movie 300. He was the king that Leonidas and all them gentlemen were fighting. But I digress. So what Darius did was in order to rule his empire, he put a bunch of, I guess, governors or something like that in place, but they were called satraps. There was like 120 of them. And one such satrap was a gentleman by the name of Daniel. Now, Daniel was an exile from Israel. He was a righteous man. He prayed to God every day, the Most High God. And he had become a fairly prominent, citizen of the Persian Empire. Well, but he still steadfast and held on to his beliefs, his belief in God. Well, some of his other satraps, as they were called, were jealous of him and wanted him, he wanted him killed, because there was no impeachment or nothing like that back then. So they went to the king and they said, "King, you're basically a living God. Let's make it for 30 days where nobody can pray to anybody but you." And he made a decree in a way that even he couldn't back out on it. He couldn't say, "Hey, if somebody's accused, there was no way even he could save them," even though he was the powerful king. And so he said, "Yeah, let's do that." Well, Daniel, he heard this, but where he was a righteous man, he went and prayed anyway. He opened his window toward Jerusalem and he said his prayer. Well, when his enemies heard this, they went and they told the king. They said, "King, Daniel prayed to somebody that isn't you. He prayed to his God, the God of Israel, the most high God." And so Darius was really upset because he liked Daniel. I guess Daniel was good at his job. They might even been like personal friends, I don't really know. But, the king was upset over this. But he could not back out on his word. And the way they executed people was throw them in a den full of lions, the lion's den. And he said, before he threw him in, because he's tore up, he's tore up from the floor up. He says, "I want you to pray to God, and hopefully God will save you." Okay, so they throwed him in the lion's den, shut the door, rolled the rock over the hole, whatever, had him trapped in there with those lions. And so the king, he was restless. He paced the floor all night. He couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. He turned down any form of entertainment. He was just, he was upset. Well, he was still awake the next morning when the sun came up. So he ran down there and he said, "Daniel, are you okay?" And Daniel said, of course I'm paraphrasing. And Daniel said, may the king live forever. And so he opened the door, and he said, you're alive. I can't believe it. And Daniel said, God sent an angel to shut all the mouths of the lions to protect me. And so he was overjoyed and relieved, and he brought him out, and he was so surprised by this miracle that he basically declared the God of Daniel, basically the official religion of Persia. And so he brought Daniel out, returned Daniel to his station, all was well. But then the king declared that the people that set Daniel up, along with their wives and their children, to be thrown in the same lion's den. And the Bible said before their feet landed at the bottom of that lion's den, they were dead. The lions had jumped on them that quick. I mean, it's kind of a brutal ending, but these guys had done this to set Daniel up, and I guess the king had no further use for him. But there's a lot of times in life you're going to feel like you're in the lion's den. You're going to be surrounded by enemies. Your life is going to be on the line. You're going to be surrounded by enemies. But have faith in God. Pray to God. Have faith in God. Let Jesus into your heart. And God will send you heavenly protection, just like he did Daniel. You just got to have faith that God will see you through. And it doesn't take a huge amount of faith. Just like a little crumb of something, like a little breadcrumb or a grain of salt or a mustard seed. Just that much faith can shut them lions up, can move mountains, and can keep you safe. It doesn't take a little bit. It just takes a little bit. It doesn't take a lot. Like that old commercial you say, a little dab will do ye. But just have faith in God and let God see you through. And God bless you all. This is my Sunday message.